Well, hello there. My name is HW.
Hey, I'm the Sooze.
Thank you so much for watching Junkie TV. Please, if you get anything out of these videos, like, subscribe, and leave us a comment or something. Sooze, let's break down how to get great worship tone on the Kemper.
Let's do it.
And this will be applicable to any rig, really, but we're just going to do it on the Kemper, right?
Sure.
So we put out this Worship 100 pack, and it's 100 popular songs that we pulled from CCLI and praise charts, and just looked at what churches are doing and popular songs that we saw people we know doing. 100 songs, and a bunch of people have downloaded it. Here's one of them, and it's a popular song, What a Beautiful Name. Maybe people recognize it at the beginning there. Probably you do. But for the Sunday morning guys, this is a standard. This has really become a standard. And that was some pretty good tone. And there's a way that we sort of approach this worship sound, which the worship sound can be a little counterintuitive, like to people starting out and maybe not, or it can be difficult to understand, to hear a tone and know how someone's getting that, because we're really adding a lot of stuff on there.
Right, yeah.
A lot of times even, we listen to a record, we hear the sound of a Bethel or a Hillsong record or something, and then we try to replicate it, and we end up like sort of hearing it in the mix and not really fully appreciating maybe what's happening. So this is kind of how you and me do it. So let's check this out. Why don't I just let you play this sound again? Play a little bit of this song.
You got some tails there.
There's some tails there for sure. And just so people can hear it in context of the song and how that kind of fits, here's like a little snippet or two. Okay, man, so let's break down like what you're doing here. 2 delays and a verb. I always run 2 delays and a verb. How often are you not using 2 delays and a reverb? Like they change, the delays and reverbs change, but how often are you going 1 delay or no verb or
like 5%?
Like 5, yeah, like not often, right? For me, it's like when I use 3 delays and a verb.
Right, yeah, you're going
Right, no, but usually 2 delays and a verb is kind of the sound. It could be 1 delay too. I mean, that can work depending, but it's the genre is a verby, washed out a little bit one. Washed out is a little too strong a word maybe. Let's break down what you're doing here. So we've got the first delay, and we're set up. You've got a 2-tap delay here. Now I'm recording this video in mono.
It all sounds good.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, your sound man's going to put you mostly in mono anyway, because why would the guy on the left side of the church need to hear something different than the right side of the
You got your favorite spot.
church? But hey, it's good for you and your in-ears, right?
Right.
And then when is the producer on the record going to be like, oh, I really want all 5 of your overdubbed electric guitars to have a really wide stereo feel.
Give me as much.
That sounds like a really good idea. It doesn't. But hey, but stereo's fun for us, right? And it's cool. It's fun. Yeah, they'll use it a little bit.
Ping pong.
Yeah. This is in mono. This will sound a little more spacey, you know, if you download this thing. But let's break this down. Play the guitar clean or dry, and then I'm going to add in the first delay. We'll hear what that first delay is doing. Very cool. First delay. We're using the 2-tap delay, 70%. So the way the Kemper does that, it's 70% as loud as your initial signal. So on other delays, this would be a little less than straight up and down. Like if you're on a Boss DD3, DD5, it's probably like 11 o'clock. Right? Okay, so a little less than half. We've got a 16th note and a dotted 8th. And feedback is pretty high, 50%. So we're going to get like 2 or 3 repeats out of that. No reverse. There's some modulation on this sound, but play it with this sound so we can hear what adding that first delay sounds like. when you hit, there's a lot more than two or three repeats. Like I said. When you hit something staccato, you hear the you hear all that stuff. When you just let a note ring out, like play something, just hit a chord, stop it, let's hear that, and then just let the chord ring out. The difference in that sensation, especially unless you really hit a staccato thing, you cannot really hear what the delay is doing.
Right.
And especially with a dotted eighth and that 16th, which is very fast, now we start getting into like reverb territory.
Yeah.
I mean, that sounds verby at the same time, right? So unless you're really going staccato with something, it's hard to differentiate. It's hard to hear what that is, right?
Yeah.
Okay, second one, and we'll play it by itself and then together. We've got another single note delay. And this is just a quarter. So this is your longer one, and 60%, that's about the same feedback, a little more. Yeah, try that. So what's interesting about this, a very similar feedback actually gives a lot longer of a trail because the subdivision, the quarter note, is so much longer than a 16th and dotted eighth, right?
It takes more time. Yeah.
So it takes more time, right, for the feedback to play out. The other thing I hear is that the guitar now sounds drier. You hear a bigger separation between the guitar and the repeated signal, right? That's a really good lesson too, because like we'll talk about with reverb in a minute, the more time you get between your initial sound and the effect coming in, the drier that sounds. The closer you get those things together, the more the delay or reverb sounds like it's part of that initial tone. So 16th, very short. We'll get into delay time in a minute and how you kind of make your tone still audible and stuff. Let's add these together. And the thing that's going to happen is, this is very like Hillsong's early 2000 and something we all sort of took from that music, and probably something they took from the Edge, or we all have taken from the Edge, which is shorter subdivision into longer subdivision. Because what does that do? The longer quarter note of a beat, it's going to grab it's going to grab whatever comes before it. So not just your original dry sound, but it's also going to grab the repeating 16th and repeating dotted eighth. And now it's taking a whole quarter note, which is comprised of already
three different notes.
Exactly. Yeah, three different things in there. The 16th is actually going to repeat multiple times, right? So the 16th, you're going to hit it, and then it's going to repeat 4 times. On the first one, there'll be your initial sound, 3/16 fitted in the quarter, right? And then the dotted eighth, you'll have
one of those.
But then the second time this thing repeats, it'll grab the first and the next dotted eighth. So
we're doing some crazy math.
Yeah, in a half note, you'll get 3 dotted eighths repeats, and you'd be getting the initial note in like 7 of the 16th, 8/16. Anyway, who cares? The point is, it's not only grabbing that initial note, now it's grabbing all the delay stuff and putting it back on top of itself. So actually, how many is it repeating in the second beat? Well, it's doubling all the 16ths, right? And the dry is still going through, so it's letting the first 16th through. So immediately, it's like, it's exponential growth. Yeah. Okay, check it out.
Yeah, this is also a tip too of like something I try not to do is put the same subdivision on 2 different delays. Yeah. So they're never stepping on each other. You got, find your little gaps and put a repeat there.
Yeah, for sure. A lot of times what's really common is an eighth dotted eighth, and then you repeat with a quarter. Yeah. If you repeat anything, this is just my take. If you go longer than a quarter, it becomes really difficult to control. Yeah. Because a half note is quite a long,
especially like on a slow song like this one.
It's really long, right? The singer's on a different part of the song by the time you're like repeated. Yeah, but you could do that. You could do that with a short. You could do that with a short feedback, and that way it only repeats once. Yeah, you know what I mean? Anyway, let's hear these 2 sounds now together.
could be a little shorter, maybe.
It could be a little short. It's also, but the thing is, by itself, it's like that, right? Mm-hmm. But like we heard it in a mix.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem because in a mix you lose the subtlety, so that.
It'd be less audible.
Yeah, you and me are waiting for it to really get to the point where it's almost dying out, but you're not going to hear that. It just sounds like a fade out. So what I heard there, which is interesting, like hit that staccato thing again. It really like this. It really gets. You hear the subdivisions going on top of each other. You hear the 16ths now on top of the 16ths. You know what I mean?
You get the
when
gallop.
it throws them back in.
Yeah.
That's it. That's the gallop. The early 2000s Hillsong sound was the gallop.
That's it. Yeah.
It's desert song. That intro is like the definition. Here's a 3-note diddly, but that gallop makes it all of a sudden. You know what I mean? It's not a 3-note diddly. It's like but anyway, it's that thing. That gallop makes that line sound like a groove.
Yeah.
So where it's a little long in this context, but we add in some verb, and now we're just going to smear over the whole thing. So here's the verb by itself. So that's the legacy verb in the Kemper. This is the Hall. It might still be my favorite verb in the Kemper just because I'm used to it. I used to use it all the time on everything. Now they got some other algorithms in there. But let's look at this. Pre-delay, 169 milliseconds, almost 170 milliseconds. Do a little staccato stab thing. So you hear the verb come in. And what it does, it gives you enough separation that you can still hear your initial note. So play a little bit again. What strikes me about that is it doesn't sound washed out, even though the verb is quite prominent.
Yeah.
Because that little bit of separation allows your initial note to come out.
Yeah.
We're also doing another thing for a very long delay, 4 seconds. That delay, we have some high dampening going on and bandwidth, which is going to give you a little bit of a lo-fi quality. But the high dampening, it's not doing a ton, but we are taking off enough. Play it now again. Put a little, dampen that high a little bit. It's just a little rolled off. You could make it really dark. It even gives the perception that there's less reverb or it's shorter.
Yeah, like a lower mix.
Yeah, it really does give that kind of perception. But that's part of the effect. A little bit of high, it goes away. Now, I'm going to turn on all 3 of these, and it sounds like this.
Beautiful.
It really does sound beautiful.
Yeah, I love that.
And it doesn't feel in your way. And as long as you're tapped in, it doesn't feel like this long, uncontrollable thing that's going around.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And you just did that video of like you can't hear reverb. That would kind of go for all this stuff about if the delay were lower and the reverb were lower, you would kind of lose it once the drums and everything are in. Yeah.
We don't have the control of verb, and maybe if we did, we don't have this control. We don't have the control over reverb and delay. We get a feedback control. And that feedback control is directly related to what an analog signal would do of let's slowly decrease let's turn up the volume of it, but let's decrease the feedback knob. We didn't have digital control over, I want 4 repeats. So I want my sound to last this long in a song. We could do that now, but we don't. Right. We still use controls that feel analog to us so that it mimics kind of what we're used to.
Yeah, totally.
So I would say, even though when you're silent like this, when it's a silent backdrop, when you're just playing with nothing else, you hear all the extra repeats that get down here. There's a threshold in a mix, and once you get below it, it might as well be off. You might as well be a silent signal. It's not coming through. You're competing with too much stuff. It is inaudible. And that's just the way it is.
Yeah.
So if you feel like when you're playing by yourself it bothers you, well, okay, you can fix it, but you are going to then mess with how many repeats or how loud those repeats are. Because that's the only 2 controls you got. We don't get another control that says, cut this delay off after half a half note or something, right. 2 beats, right? If we did, maybe we'd use it. Maybe it would be useful. But we don't. I want you to keep playing, and I'm going to turn on and off some of these effects. I'm going to show what it just sounds like with and without kind of some of these delays, so people can hear them in different order. So I'm going to let you start with all of it, and then I'll turn some of it off.
Okay. That'll always get a thumbs up from me.
That's so, you can go to that infinite control.
I love that, yeah.
And we did in a previous video that these, short of infinity, it's those things really, they go for almost ever.
Sure, yeah.
The infinity does go forever, but short of that, they do go a long, long time.
Another quick thing is the compressor, like giving us that. I'm using one of these scratchy picks, thank you.
Yeah.
Edge, thank you, whatever. And just that attack is really important to me, getting that scrape and getting that punch.
If you're going to recommend picks, Herco and Herdum.
Herdum, this is a Herdum.
Yeah.
The Herco ones, the little gray ones are great.
And even some of that, if you just have lighter Dunlop picks and you use a heavier pick, just use a lighter, the plasticky Dunlop ones, and you could feel, you'll get the difference there too. But the Herdum is the edge pick.
Yeah, flip it around.
That scrapey thing. Compression is a big part of the sound, and a bright high end. I think one thing we kind of covered and didn't cover here was see this high cut on the delay. So we're high cutting the delay, and then that first delay, and then the second delay, we also have a pretty significant high cut. So nothing really above. So here, play that delay, play that.
Kind of analog-y.
Yeah. You have a high cut pretty much below 3K. If we did that to the guitar, it would sound almost like an AM radio. I mean, it's we're significantly in the upper mid range of the guitar. You know what I mean? So it's really, we're providing a very warm experience after and that's one of the reasons why you can use so much delay and verb. And have it still be have clarity. Because we're sort of reserving the high end for the initial attack.
Right.
And then we're really being stingy with it after that. What I was noticing when I was turning these on and off is the delays kind of, to me, make it not sound not dry, but the reverb takes it into huge territory.
Right.
That's when it just sounds epic. You know, it's almost like an epic button.
Yeah.
You know, you need the delays to sort of just give you like, so that it doesn't feel empty when you're playing, you know? But the verb just really takes it to that place.
Yeah.
You know, it just really sound, I mean, for lack of a better term, it really takes on a like cathedral type.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's almost as if they knew.
It's almost as if they knew. Whoever invented reverb must have known that we would want that.
And there's kind of two schools there, you know, too. I like going back and forth between like a prominent loud delay, kind of like Stooge, you know, tons of delay, not a big ambient long reverb. But then the other folks, you know, their delays are kind of there, but they really rely heavily on their big sky or whatever to give them that long reverb. So this is, you know, we heard a lot of the length coming from the delay there.
That's
but
true.
You could flop them and have that reverb just go forever.
Right,
you know?
really keep going.
Yeah.
There are schools of thought, and there's a lot of schools of thought about, like, you know, I hinted at this earlier. I have pretty strong feeling that as a guitar player, when you rely too much on the stereo field to really give you like a really big sound, I think that's just another way you're separating what you're experiencing from what the audience is experiencing. And the same thing with like, you know, how are your in-ears colored or are they flat? I want an in-ear set that has a fairly wide thing. I want to hear something like what I think the PA is going to sound like.
Right.
So certain in-ears that people go, for singers, they'll say, these in-ears sound great for singers. And I know what that means. That means it's going to sound great for your acoustic guitar and the singers, and they're always going to say your electric guitar is too loud.
Yeah.
Because they're emphasizing where the voice is. They're not giving you too much bass, and you're not going to get too much high clacka kind of thing. It's probably going to be like there's probably going to be like a 1K 16 push, 5K, so you can hear the S's and everything, 10. You're not going to get, whereas a bass player is going to, he's going to say those in-ears are trash.
Right.
Because all of a sudden his instrument is not right.
Can't hear it. Yeah.
No, and he wants to hear all this stuff. I have a set of in-ears right now that as soon as I put them in, I went, oh my gosh, I can hear the clack of this acoustic guitar and I can hear the finger on the strings.
Right.
And that's not something I want for the electric guitar, but I want to hear the whole thing.
Yeah, you don't want to compensate for
Right.
the ears, you know.
So I want to hear a wide thing because I want to hear how my guitar fits in there. I don't want something that accents my guitar, because then how can I know, because the system isn't going to accent the guitar. And then same thing, I don't want to dial in my tone for home by itself with no mix, and I don't want to dial in my tone for amp in the room, because then when I show up I put a mic on it and now I'm dealing with all this stuff. That's one of the best things about the Kemper, being able to get it right, save it. So in that same way, I don't want to I want to be consistent. So I don't want to enjoy this wide stereo field at home and then show up and a sound guy lets me hear the stereo, but I'm being thrown in mono. I would rather monitor the way it's going to go out there.
Yeah.
So I have stereo and I send stereo and they want stereo, but I'm under no illusions, especially with a second guitar player. If you both are using stereo, they're going to go, well, you get stereo but more to one side. And you get stereo but more to one side, because you also, the band is now a stereo field, not just your ears. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, totally, yeah.
So, and then same thing, I think when you're doing a project or something, like James Duke gave me this advice one time. He was like, I would just do it all in mono, because when is a producer gonna be like, oh yeah, I want 4 guitars with wide stereo? Oh, good point. That's a really good point.
Yeah.
You take a part and you put it over here, and you take another part and you put it over here.
Or double for a stereo.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I don't know what that means.
It's good food for thought.
I'm a believer too. I'm just a believer. Like, I don't know. I think mono's underrated. I know it's not as fun, but they don't get the advantage of the stereo thing when you send it out. Maybe they do.
You're like a mono apologist. You're like making a case for mono.
I just think, and the other thing we got to acknowledge is if you're this far into the video, you're a Sunday morning guy. We're playing in 8 and 9 piece bands. These are not small bands.
That's true.
The frequency range we have is very tight. It's a small space. We're not Robin Ford. We're not Stevie Ray Vaughan. We're not John Mayer. We're not Jimi Hendrix. These are not trios. It's not drums, bass, and you get everything else.
Right.
That's just not it.
Right.
Like, we have tight spots, and especially when we're doubling melodies, like you in that playthrough you did, and the way you're playing the song, more than the actual recording, right? That like Hillsong does. You're referencing the melody. You're calling to the melody, right? And that's really nice to listen to. But if your tone is all over the frequencies of the singer, so the sound guy's not going to let you do that. If all of a sudden if you're doubling the melody but you're really on top or you're too loud, you're coming down.
Right.
And if you're not like in a tight spot, if you don't have mids that can come out, if you don't have like some high-end chime or something, you become inaudible when they turn you down.
Right. Because I have to keep the vocal, so you're the next thing to go.
Yeah, you are not.
Speaking of mids,
we
have them. Yeah, so the green screen is obviously on a lot of these, just to give that push of mids or whatever. And I've been on the middle for this whole video, but if you go to the bridge and get the green screen, you can get that, like you're saying, like
and even just sitting in the room, like going to the bridge, it would sound harsh.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But in a band, no way. When you get going, get off that neck pickup, man. What are you doing?
Bridge,
You're like a dog woofing in the next room. That's how much someone can hear you if you're on that neck, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. There's a lot we could say about worship tone, but for me, the real foundational things, if you want to dial in your own tone, and I think everybody should be able to do this, just pull up a profile, 2 delays and a verb, shorter subdivisions, longer subdivisions, darken them up, take down some of that high end, verb to wash the whole thing together, with ample over 100 milliseconds of pre-delay.
Definitely.
Over 100. I would go 150 to 200. You do what feels good. And then the other thing I would say to that, nice high end on the guitar is going to counteract the darker repeats. Give yourself some compressor so that it all comes out.
Yeah.
Right? Get a nice compressed signal. Compression's nice. When you're listening to 8 things, compression is nice.
Yeah.
Right? And then, you're almost there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
You learn D, G, E minor. Oh, you got a gig. You got a
There
gig.
it is. So good.
Then all you got to do is buy whatever the next, $300 hypey overdrive is.
Yeah.
And you're done.
Until the next one comes out.
Yeah, until next month when the next one comes out. So at that point, you only got to get 6 to 8 hype drives a year.
Yeah, it's doable.
And now Strymon's about to release a new thing.
Oh, yeah.
Who knows what that is? Hey, I hope this was helpful to some of you guys who maybe are dialing in tone. And by the way, this is available on the site. It's like uber cheap with the 50% off. If you want to grab this and look at what Sooze dialed in. We just went through the verse. You can actually study yourself how it's changing at the chorus and the bridge and his huge setting, you know what I mean? And there's versions of this in all the other songs. They match the songs, but there's you'll notice some common themes in the swell and the bridge, and you can really break this stuff down. Overdrives might change a bit and effects might change, but you can check this out. There's also some stuff in the free pack, and you can get the Worship 100 pack at ToneJunkieStore.com.
Love it.
Love it. I love it. Well, my name's been HW.
I'm Sooze.
HW and the Sooze. Out.